Hello and welcome back to another episode of The One Report. Here on this series, we cover the biggest talking points and news from this past week regarding One Championship. I believe this is our 11th episode now of this series, so I'm pretty happy that I've been able to consistently put these out every Monday. Getting up on a Monday morning to record these things is not always easy, but we try and make that happen over here. So I appreciate the support and everything like that. As always, it means a lot. Wherever you are watching this from, whatever time it is, I hope that your week is off to a good start. I'm sure, if you are new to this channel, please drop me a subscribe. We're near that 1,000 subscribers mark, so I'd very much appreciate that. But also, if you're returning here, I'm sure you saw that I put up a series of videos over this past weekend. I was able to kind of batch record a bunch of things that I wanted to get around to talking about. Some of those will come up again today on this episode of The One Report regarding One Fight Night 27 in particular. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple of weeks for me work wise. I'm writing an awful lot at the moment across the various places that I write for: Fighters Only, Sportskeeda, MMA News. I'm doing some other stuff as well, some other little projects here and there. So busy as always, but we wouldn't want it any different. The camera has lost its focus. All right, we're back. We are so back. Yeah, I hope people enjoyed the previous weekend's action. I'm sure a lot of you guys tuned in for UFC 309. Maybe you tuned in for Cage Warriors 2. Maybe you tuned in for KSW as well. I've covered all of those and more for various places. So that is not what we are here to talk about. We are here to talk about One Championship. There's a few news stories this week that I have left out of the running order purely, in the interest of keeping this fairly quick, and also just ones that I think take priority. So I will briefly mention those now. A few things that didn't make it this week that maybe would on a week where there was less to talk about, but things like Rug's return, where he got an incredible welcome back in Senegal, is worth spotlighting. The mural that I saw of him from One Championship social media pages is fantastic. That's really, really cool to see. And, it really does seem like that win is going to end up being life-changing for him, that win over Anatoly Malikin. Of course, we spoke about on the previous episode of The One Report. You can go check that out if you want to for our full 1169 recap. Karate Combat are still kind of going after one a little bit. I know they recently had an event in Thailand. I believe they've said that Thailand is now going to be their main focus going forward. So that could get interesting. Maybe we'll talk about that in a separate video at some stage. I would be open to doing that for sure if that's what people want to see. I know I didn't really look too far into it. I'll be honest. A lot of these topics that we're going to talk about today, you guys are going to be getting my first reaction. Obviously, I've made a note of what we're going to be covering, so I know the stories themselves, but I haven't given some of these topics too much time because, like I said, it's been a busy week and there's been a lot to get to. So a lot of these things are going to be my initial reactions, which I think is fine. I quite like doing that anyway. And, I wouldn't want to sit here with a script and just read off of it and give you guys, planned thoughts, bullet points and things like that. I just, I want to sit here and talk about these topics and hopefully it feels a little bit more authentic and things like that. Hopefully a little bit similar of a reaction to what some of you guys have had. Drop comments down below, interact, things like that. That's what we're all about here on The One Report. So the biggest thing I believe that we should probably start with is some fight announcements for One Fight Night 26. If you watched the previous episode of The One Report, I've already said I think this card is looking very, very good, and we've had a couple of really big fights announced for this card, which honestly I didn't see coming. I thought this card, in terms of the big fights, was probably already stacked up, but we've got a couple more. So I think this end of year card at Lumpini Stadium, December 6th, I say end of year, it's December 6th, but I think this card looks very strong indeed. So, of course, in the main event, you've got the returning Christian Lee defending his lightweight title against Ali Begrazilov. You cannot see her because I'm blocking her face, but you have Mesa Bastos defending her atomweight submission grappling world championship in a rematch with Danielle Kelly. That is your main and co-main event, although they have put this bantamweight kickboxing match actually above the submission grappling contest. And I don't necessarily, whilst I understand that that might be a little bit harsh on Bastos and Kelly, who are in a world championship contest. I don't hate the idea of breaking up the two title fights with a high stakes kickboxing bout between two big names in one. I don't, you might end up annoying the submission grappling competitors themselves. I've almost said fans, but I don't know how many of them tune into these one cards. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the people that end up watching these submission grappling matches are people that are already tuning into one, not necessarily specifically for this. I quite like the idea of breaking that up, but maybe that's just me. I just think the pacing might end up being a little bit better as a result. I also don't want the submission grappling contest to just be you may be in for a bit of a problem where I'm going to use a wrestling comparison here, but back in the you know mid 2000s, late 2000s, even into the early 2010s, when women's wrestling was nowhere near given the amount of respect that it deserved, the amount of time it deserved. There is an argument there as to whether the talent was really there for it to be put on a pedestal in the way that it has been in the many years that have followed, following the women's revolution. I'm just talking about pro wrestling here. Sorry, I do this. But there was kind of a narrative for a long time that the women's match would usually go on quite late on in the card at a pro wrestling show. Purely so that people, if they wanted to, could use that match to go and get some refreshments, maybe go to the toilet, and then come back for the final matches of the evening. And I am by no means saying that that should be the case. It shouldn't have been the case. It was the case. It's just something that happened. It doesn't happen anymore, thankfully. I think maybe there is, I guess, but then do people do that anyway? Does putting it here make it? I think people would probably do that anyway if they're not interested in submission grappling and then come back for the main event. So does that really change anything? I don't know. I just think maybe it helps with the pacing. We've gone on way too long about this. It's not really a big point. But this fight itself is probably the biggest fight that we're going to be talking about today. It is a bantamweight kickboxing bout between Nabil and Petchtanong, or Petchtanong, I should say, Petch Fergus, who is, of course, a former champion who was stripped of his kickboxing title due to a positive drug test. He is going to be making his return. He put on a great performance, I thought, against Aliverdi Ramazanov at One Friday Fights 68 this past June. Has won. I was going to say that was his comeback, right? I for some reason I could have sworn he fought Hiroki since coming back, like in a rematch. Obviously, he defeated Hiroki Akimoto via split decision in 2022 to become the bantamweight kickboxing world champion, and then was stripped of the belt, like I said. So for some reason, I thought that I think I just willed that to happen. Maybe. Of course, thinking of Akimoto taking on Wei Ray. That was Akimoto's comeback, and then Akimoto went on to fight Elias Anahachi. I thought that Petchtanong would be in that mix as well. I think that you could potentially do Anahachi versus Haggerty now that they are in the same. I am right. But Anahachi moved up, didn't he, to bantamweight? So Anahachi, I think, after beating Akimoto, looks to be the number one contender. We'll get to Haggerty a little bit. Actually, we'll get to Haggerty a little bit later. Haggerty is in the running order for today, so that could be next. I expected Petchtanong to be in that mix, maybe have him fight Wei Ray, or like I said, a rematch with Akimoto that I seem to think had already happened. But instead, he's going to be taking on Nabil Anand, who will be making his kickboxing debut. I don't know if he had kickboxing fights outside of one, not that I know of, but he might have done. Certainly his kickboxing debut in one. The 20-year-old rising contender. He has won his last 5 in Muay Thai and really, really shown himself to be a serious threat. I'm going to have a sip of my tea here, as is usual. The usual proceedings. I don't know. Beautiful. Yeah, Nabil's been on a great run. That knockout win over Nakrob, beating Muay Thai by a decision, stopping Kulab Dam was a moment where I was like, whoa, Nabil is on a tear right now. Not that Kulab Dam is necessarily in the best form of his career, but to stop Kulab Dam, I thought was very impressive. And then 2 pretty decisive, dominant almost made them look a bit easy wins against former title challenger Felipe Lobo and Solin O last time out. That was a fight that I think was always kind of going Nabil's favor. So he's going to be making his kickboxing debut. I personally put this down to where the bantamweight Muay Thai division is right now. You, of course, already have Superlek and Nico Carrillo matched up for 170 in January next year. I think that there is a really good chance that you get Nabil versus the winner of that. Nabil versus Nico would be a really, really fun fight, I think, between two guys. You know, if Nico goes on to beat Superlek, then that's incredible. And Nabil, like I said, has been on a fantastic run in this Muay Thai division as of late. And of course, Nabil's one and only loss in one was his debut where he took on Superlek. So a rematch with Superlek after the win streak that Nabil's been able to put together, I think is fantastic as well. So I think Nabil probably doesn't even need another win, to be honest, to go into the Muay Thai World Championship shot. So I think that this is a way of him keeping busy whilst doing something meaningful. The Solin O fight, whilst I was like, okay, this could be a fun matchup, and we'll see now how, Nabil uses his range, and he used it very effectively, as we kind of, I think a lot of people predicted. This is a way for him to keep busy whilst it being something meaningful. I wouldn't really be too bothered about seeing him take on more Muay Thai contenders, unless it was like top contenders, if he's going to fight like Simon Pet or there really isn't that many people left. Maybe Cameron Nabati, that would be a really fun one. I think a lot of people expected to see that. I think we still could as a number one contenders match. That's probably the only thing that I think makes sense for Nabil in this division, other than the world championship shot, just because Nabati has put together a very impressive run as well. Obviously beat Nongo last time out, so he is right in that mix as well. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird matchup, but definitely didn't see it coming. But I think if you're going to give Nabil something to do whilst he waits for potentially a fight with Nabati, which I think, like I said, a lot of people expected to be next, or just giving him the world championship shot, which I think would also be fair enough. Yeah, we'll see how he does against Petchtanong in bantamweight kickboxing. And if he wins this fight, then, I mean, the bantamweight kickboxing division is in a little bit of a weird state right now. But if he wins this, then he's right up in that mix already. And, then you've got Nabil being potentially on the cusp of 2 world championship shots in different divisions, and that is pretty exciting for him. And I'm a big fan of watching Nabil. I think his personality really comes through in his interviews, especially in recent times. So I think he's going to go on to become a huge star. I think everyone can see that. So yeah, interesting to see how he does here. I'm excited to watch this fight, even if I didn't see this one coming. My tea's getting cold. This always happens. I chit chat too much, although that is kind of what we're here to do. This is the next big matchup that we have had announced. The interim strawweight world champion Jared Brooks will be going up to flyweight to take on Reece McLaren. Again, a fight that I definitely did not see coming. I expected that Brooks would probably just wait for Pasio to return from his injury so that they can do their trilogy fight at strawweight, title unification bout. I thought that would make the most sense. I also thought that we might get Brooks versus Malachiev after Malachiev got a win over Bokang Masanyane last time out. We haven't seen those two match up yet. I think that's quite an interesting matchup given both men's wrestling ability. So I thought that was maybe an option, or depending on the time frame of Pasio's injury, it doesn't look like he's going to be back for a little while longer still. So maybe Brooks would just wait. But no, he's going to be going up to flyweight to take on Reece McLaren, who is a guy that I think a lot of people are factoring into the vacant flyweight title picture right now. You've, of course, had Adriano Moraes defeat Danny Kingad at 1169, like a week and a half ago or whatever, in kind of an unofficial semi-final to go towards this vacant flyweight title fight. And I thought that Reece McLaren would probably just be Adriano's opponent in his next fight, to be honest. But it looks like we're going to get this one instead. Does this act as, like I said, a kind of unofficial semi-final, and then the winner of this fight meets Adriano in a vacant flyweight title fight? I don't really know, because if Reece beats Jared 100%, right, I think he has to go on and fight Adriano. Now, we do also have another flyweight MMA contest on here with the return of Yuya Wakamatsu taking on Gilbert Nakatani, so that could be an option as well, maybe. But I think if Reese beats Jared, that's a huge win. Reese has to go and fight Adriano for the vacant title. But if Jared beats Reese, I don't know what that means, because Pasio, I don't know the exact time frame on his return, but I would imagine he'll be back by, halfway through the year. Will they be able to book Jared and Adriano for early next year, or like before Pasio's back? I don't know. I think both guys would do it, but I don't know whether one will book it that quickly. Also, I just hadn't really considered the possibility. I know that Jared is always on about, moving up and fighting at two different weights, fighting in different sports, all of this kind of thing. And obviously, he really wanted that fight with Demetrius Johnson. Maybe he sees a fight with Adriano as the thing that might bring DJ back so that he can fight DJ in his dream fight. I don't think DJ is ever coming back. I think, whatever you want to throw at him, I don't think would bring him back. Even if one, obviously this didn't happen, but if one had signed like Mohamed Mokayev and he beats Adriano, so I don't think anything could bring DJ back, even something that's exciting like that. So I just hadn't really considered the possibility of Jared versus Adriano, because Adriano is so big. That would be a really, really interesting one. I would struggle to find a. I just think that's a tough outing for Jared, but I know that he is super confident and obviously super skilled. So it would be an interesting fight, but not something I had really considered before. But yeah, who knows? Do you guys agree with me? If Reese wins, is it a definite he has to go fight Adriano for the vacant title? And what about Jared? Do you think that that's the direction they'll go? If Jared beats Reese, does he just go back to strawweight? I don't know. If it wasn't for the fact that last time out he was DQ'd against Pasio, and the trilogy fight means he can close that chapter and win back the full world championship. Obviously, he's the interim champion right now. I think Jared probably would just stay at flyweight if he beats Reese and try and get the Adriano fight, because he's kind of ran through strawweight. But there is this Pasio chapter that kind of needs closing, and so I can see him returning to strawweight, to be honest, regardless of whether he wins or loses, unless they offer him, a good deal to go and fight Adriano next. I think that was pretty much it. We did have this grappling match between Shinya Aoki and Cole Abate. I believe Shinya on social media was pretty critical of this, which is maybe not what you want for your recently announced fight. Let me just look up Shinya on Twitter, and we'll see if we can find that. I did see somebody tweet about it. There's a post here from Shinya on November 12th. I don't know. He posted about the match, and then there's like a photo of someone in a bikini. I don't know what's going on here. I'm not sure. Maybe it was a reply that he posted rather than a post himself. Yeah. I mean, clearly, Cole Abate is one of the promotion's new submission grappling guys that they're looking to push. I don't know too much about him, but we will talk about this fight more in depth when we get round to it, and I will, do a little bit more research on Cole Abate for people who are interested. But yeah, you can see what's happening here, right? One have signed a new submission grappling guy. I'm assuming he's a very, exciting prospect, or potentially, an already exciting contender. And Shinya Aoki is a grappling legend in the way that Shinya had a grappling match with Cade Ruotolo, coming in and facing Shinya on your debut, potentially beating Shinya, is a very big win. And I'm sure it's a cool moment for Cole Abate, who I'm sure has, watched Shinya Aoki for a long time. But this isn't a particularly necessary bout. But again, I don't necessarily, this is not a new thing in combat sports, right? The new guy coming in and facing the old guard, and whilst there might be more exciting matchups for the new guy on the block, like I said, Aoki is a big name nonetheless. So I think that's going to do it for One Fight Night 26. One of the other big announcements, I already put a video up all about these announcements. We had the news that One Fight Night 27 is going to be headlined by a fantastic featherweight MMA World Championship contest between the champion Tankai and Akbar Abdullayev. I'm going to be talking about this fight probably every episode until it happens. I cannot wait to watch this one. I think a lot of people, from the comments, people seem to agree with me on my video that I put out that it is the best MMA fight that one could put together right now. So I'm glad that you agree with me. If you had pointed out something that I didn't think of, I would have felt like an idiot. But I'm glad that we are corrected. I'm glad that we stand on the same side of this this point that I made. But the co-main event will be Denise Zamboanga taking on Aliona Rasohina. And I forgot to mention this at the time, so I thought we would chat about it here. But as was the case when this fight was first announced for One Fight Night, I already worked this out last on the video, didn't I? Was it One Fight Night 25? I think it was One Fight Night 25 when this fight was booked, and then it fell off the card. Or was it One Fight Night 24? Oh, God, I can't remember. But when that fight was announced the first time around, Ham Seo Hee was fairly critical of it. And that was once again the case for the fight being rebooked, unsurprisingly. Let's pull up Ham Seo Hee quickly on One Championship. That is not Ham Seo Hee. The South Korean contender is coming off of her stoppage loss to Stamp Fairtex at One Fight Night 14 in September of 2023, so been out over a year at this point. But of course, her first two wins in One Championship came against Denise Zamboanga. This post from Mr. Nicholas Atkin shows Ham Seo Hee's Instagram story where she labeled this fight a fake champion match. It's a fake champion no matter who wins, because she believes that she should be included in this. And I think it's hard to disagree. We spoke about this when this happened the first time around, when Ham Seo Hee was critical of this fight the first time it was booked. And part of me kind of understands why she wouldn't get put straight into a interim title fight, because she is coming off of a loss to Stamp, and that rematch I don't think is something that a lot of people are too interested in right now. But saying that, if she goes and beats another top contender, I don't even know whether to say Denise or Aliona, because she's already beaten Denise twice, and Rasohina I don't think is particularly in a spot to be considered a top contender right now. Let's say Ham Seo Hee goes and beats somebody like Chihiro Sawada, then suddenly she probably is in for a title shot against Stamp, and so is an interim title. In that sense, an interim title fight does probably make sense for her, because she probably is only one big win away from getting another fight with Stamp. Yeah, I think that the reason why she is frustrated, and the reason why you can understand it, is because she's beaten Denise twice, and Denise is going to be booked against Rasohina, who again we spoke about this in the fight announcement, she is in this fight because of her history with Stamp, and that is pretty much it. So yeah, Ham Seo Hee is still unhappy. I hope that she gets a fight booked in the near future, regardless of this, because like I said, she's been out for a little while now, and that would be expected after the loss that she suffered against Stamp, but hopefully not for too much longer. Final fight announcement for us to chat about. We're gonna flip the screen over to One Championship's Instagram, where we have a new striking matchup for 170, which looks to be a fantastic night of striking so far. Of course, we also have Fabricio Andrade defending his Bantamweight MMA World Championship on that card. But again, Fabricio, one of the best strikers in MMA that one have. So again, another great night of striking, as I said. We've got the return of the former title challenger, Jo Nattawut, who is going to be taking on Bampara Kuyate at 170 Impact Arena in Bangkok. Bampara Kuyate, I think, has been super impressive. So to see him get a fight like this, I think is fantastic. When I say he's been super impressive, he's 1-1 in one championship, right? He suffered a decision loss on his debut at One Fight Night 15, and wasn't particularly anything to write home about. Shakir Al Tekriti, I could have butchered that name, so I do apologize if I did. Hasn't, gone on to mount any serious title charge or anything like that after beating him. He suffered a loss to Rungwawi at One Fight Night 18 at the start of this year. But Kayate, the reason I say I've been really impressed by him is I kind of wasn't expecting tons from him in his fight against Luke Lisi that happened at One Fight Night 23 in July. And I thought he looked absolutely fantastic in that fight. Obviously, Luke is incredibly tough and did, try to mount a comeback that looked like it might happen. But, Kayate was able to stay in there and overcome that forward pressure from Luke and then get the finish in the third round. So I'm really excited to see this one. I think this is a great matchup. I think that it might go under the radar for people that maybe weren't as, taken aback by Kuyate's performance against Luke Lisi, but I, for one, was super impressed by it. Jo Nattawut coming off of a knockout loss as well. So this isn't, there's some questions, right? He's coming off of a knockout loss to Superbon. We haven't seen him get beat that decisively before in one, even if he has had his fair share of losses. Obviously, he looked very, very impressive in his 2 fights with Tawanchai, was booked for a trilogy fight with Tawanchai at 1169 that didn't end up happening because of his knockout loss to Superbon. Instead, we are going to get Superbon versus Tawanchai 2 on this very card. So you would imagine, if Jo Nattawut goes out there and puts on a good performance against Kuyate, you have Superbon and Tawanchai fighting for the World Championship later on in the night. You could probably do Jo Nattawut in a rematch versus either of those guys, and we just carry on with this round-robin tournament that we seem to have of Tawanchai, Smoking Joe, and Superbon. So, yeah, good matchup. Excited to see this one. And it will be definitely one that we chat about more in the lead up to this event as we get a little bit closer. We'll go to Jonathan Haggerty next. Let me pull up his social media really quick. Not tons to talk about here. Haggerty posted just this very post. Let me pull this up on screen for you. There you go. Yeah, just a simple post here from Haggerty. It's right above my head. The caption here, which says, "We have a fight date. Time to get back to winning ways." You would imagine if he's got a fight date, it will be very early next year. I would imagine January is probably not an option. But yeah, One Fight Night 27 has got 2 title fights. Unless he's returning in Muay Thai, but you would hope that he will be defending the kickboxing belt. As mentioned already on this very episode, I think Elias Enahachi would be the front runner for that matchup. I know that Wei Ray also beat Hiroki Akimoto, but it was a very, very close fight and a pretty, I guess, heavily debated result. I don't know if was it super controversial. I guess it was. I think most people had Akimoto winning that fight. But yeah, Anahachi I thought looked fantastic against Hiroki earlier this year when he returned on that Big Friday Fights card. So I think that it should be Anahachi. And Anahachi versus Haggerty for the belt is a fantastic fight that I would be super excited to watch. So that is the one we are pulling for. Last but not least, we will talk about a contender in one championship that for some time we have been like, where is this guy? Super exciting contender, and we haven't seen him booked in a little while. And we now know why, because of a report from Mr. Nick Atkin over on the Bangkok Post. And that is, of course, regarding One Championship's Ben Tynan, who is serving a 12-month ban for a positive drug test, according to sources. You can go check this post out for yourself. I'm sure, if you guys are checking out this video, I'm sure you already know all about my good pal, Mr. Nick Atkin, and his fantastic work currently over at the Bangkok Post. So go and follow him, and go check out the Bangkok Post as well. Get this article views up through the roof for the fantastic work that he does. Sources close to the situation have confirmed that one championship heavyweight MMA contender Ben Tynan is serving a 12-month ban for a positive drugs test. The Canadian tested positive for multiple banned substances after his last appearance against Duke Didier in April, which is why he has not competed since then. He was suspended from competition for a year and is eligible to return in April 2025 at the earliest, the Bangkok Post understands. So let me pull up Ben's one championship run so far. We've been questioning for a little while, where is Ben Tynan? A lot of you will remember he was booked to return at 167 against Mauro Chiarelli. And it didn't happen. It was announced and then pulled from the card, seemingly the next day or something. So I guess that's when the test result came back. I'm not too sure how that works, but back-to-back wins for Ben in one championship, submission win over Kang Ji-won on his debut, and then a first-round knockout win over Duke Didier at One Fight Night 21 in April. And it really looked like, off the back of that Duke Didier win, that we were on the up with Vanilla Thunder Ben Tynan. He was calling out Malakin an awful lot, and I thought that if he went and beat Mauro Chiarelli, there could be a serious, option for him to fight Malakin next. Obviously, that didn't happen. His fight with Chiarelli didn't happen. We ended up getting Rugrug and Malakin. Rugrug, as we talked about in depth on the last episode, shocked the world by becoming the one heavyweight world champion. We're going to get Ben back in April, hopefully, maybe a little bit later, depending on US cards. I think that he makes a lot of sense to put on the US cards. As for how this impacts people's perception of Ben, I'm interested because I don't really know. I don't know whether this will make people like Ben Tynan any less. I'm not too sure. I would be interested on getting people's opinions on this on the comments below. Does this affect your thoughts on Ben Tynan and whether you want to see him fight for the heavyweight world championship? Not too many people in one get caught for failing drugs tests. We already mentioned Petchtanong, who's probably the number one example that people would point to, and so this, I didn't see this coming. This wouldn't have been something that I would have guessed would have been to blame for Ben's absence. We'll chat about him more when a comeback is announced. But we finally have some information on why Ben Tynan has not fought in the remainder of 2024. That will just about do it for this episode of the One Report. This ended up being a long one, huh? I didn't expect this at all. But hey, that's what we're here to do. We ramble a little bit, we get through the talking points eventually, and that'll just about do it for episode 11 of the One Report. As mentioned, I appreciate your support as always. Drop this video a like, get involved in the comments. As always, I will catch you on the next one. Hopefully, we'll have another video up out this week. Like I said, it's hectic over here at the moment, so we'll just see how much I'm able to get done this week. But until then, I'll catch you all later. Peace.